Congress's most important responsibilities is oversight of the executive branch in general and the military and intelligence community in particular. Unfortunately, there is a growing body of evidence that the U.S. government is not being transparent about what it knows about unidentified anomalous phenomena, and that elements within the military and the IC are in violation of their constitutional duty to notify Congress of their operations.
At a congressional hearing on UAPs, independent journalist Michael Schellenberger submitted a whistleblower report claiming the U.S. government is hiding evidence of unidentified aerial phenomena, or UAPs, and an alleged secret program called Immaculate Constellation. The report is wild. I'm sure many of you are familiar with it by now, but buried in the pages, something jumped out at me. A name of a website, one I've been following for years, and one that's baffled internet sleuths, linguists, and conspiracy theorists alike. Forgotten Languages. If you spend any time online looking into forgotten languages, you'll find people calling it one of the deepest rabbit holes on the internet. Some say it's a psyop, others think it's a long-running ARG, and some believe it's a genuine research collective just sharing knowledge. Whatever it is, it's pretty massive, really strange, and operating quietly in a corner of the web that most people never see. No mainstream coverage, no clear origin, just a blog that's been quietly publishing strange encrypted articles and eerie videos for nearly 2 decades. In this video, I'm going to cover the basics, everything someone new to forgotten languages should know before diving in. And this rabbit hole is deep. There's no way to cover everything in one video, so think of this as a map, a way to get your bearings and an introduction to the main players, theories, and terminology before we go further in maybe future episodes if there's enough interest. So, get cozy, grab a snack, and let's start at the beginning. What exactly is forgotten languages? Forgotten Languages, or FL, is a blog that first appeared in 2005. It's uncertain who started it, and when asked, one of the main contributors said, "I do ignore who founded the group as such." The site has published nearly 10,000 posts over the last 2 decades. No ads, no announcements, no breaks. There are multiple contributors, and the number of them has grown, from 13 names in 2012 to 43 in 2025. The authors use pseudonyms: Andrel, Doreen, Erda. It's rare for a day to pass without at least one new post, but on most days, multiple articles go up. Across a 9-month stretch in 2013 to 2014, they averaged 114 posts per month. Each article includes a title, a block of main text, custom images, the author's name, tags, and a bibliography. The bibliographies often cite peer-reviewed papers, other FL articles, and occasionally hidden posts labeled defense reports, entries by FL that are not visible on the public blog. Many of these internal citations follow a specific format, FL dash and then a number. It's a date, day, month, year. So something like FL 160706 refers to a post from July 16th, 2006. But some of them cite dates long before the site went live in 2008, like this one, which has an article from 98, or decades into the future, like this one, which could be, I guess, 1942, but also 2042, considering the report is about time travel. These anomalies show up most often in defense reports. Many aren't even linked. They just exist in the footnotes, implying a larger archive the public doesn't have access to. Topics covered on the site range from the philosophical, to the scientific, to just the truly bizarre. Just a glance at the article tags brings up things like alchemy, angelic language, vampire, defense, anti-language, dreams, dark millennium. Many articles reference alien races, as well as theoretical tech, language fractals, and what FL calls chemolinguistics, language as a medium for manipulating biology. Most of the articles are written in what look like constructed languages, not foreign languages, but entirely invented ones. Google Translate can't help here, and even advanced AI models can't crack them. They've developed at least 40 of these languages, probably more. One of the most striking examples is Cassini Discus, a symbolic language made up of colored geometric shapes. Sandwiched between the encrypted passages, you'll find English sections. These vary widely. Some read like dense scientific discussions on propulsion or quantum theory. Others are poetry, personal reflections, or sharp ideological commentary. Some are possibly the beliefs of FL members themselves, but it's important to point out that many are not. There are quotations from other groups or individuals that don't necessarily reflect the views or beliefs of FL themselves. It's also curious that the site has no obvious monetization or marketing strategy. FL also has a YouTube channel, active primarily between 2007 and 2018. The videos feature cryptic visuals layered with electronic music, often ambient or techno-adjacent, and titles that seem just as obscure as the blog posts. As stated by one member of FL, videos in our channel are an alternative way to communicate knowledge. Music is a powerful way to induce altered states of consciousness that sometimes are required to access primordial knowledge. Some viewers have even analyzed the spectrograms of FL's audio tracks, visualizing the frequencies to look for hidden patterns or embedded signals. Then there's the bookstore, Aureum Linguae, which advertises rare and esoteric texts. Though many have tried to purchase from the site, decoding its email address and reaching out, no one seems to receive a reply. A note on the site reads, "Please contact us about prices before placing an order for an on-demand book reproduction. Bear in mind that these books are luxury items for wealthy customers." Despite how public the website is, Forgotten Languages remains largely in the shadows, deliberately or otherwise. So, what are these languages, and what is this group trying to accomplish? The most public-facing figure behind Forgotten Languages is someone known as Andrel. Not much is known about them personally, and though many have speculated, their anonymity is intentional, so this video isn't about doxing anyone. But based on years of forum posts, interviews, and email correspondence, we can start to build a profile. Not of who they are, but what they're about. According to Andrel, the original name of the project was Lingua Obliterata, Latin for effaced or barren languages. Later, it became Forgotten Languages, reflecting a broader mission, the recovery and evolution of suppressed knowledge. The idea behind FL is to share knowledge. The amount of knowledge currently available on the internet is just a small fraction of the available written knowledge, as most of the information remains exclusively on paper in libraries, whether public, private, or personal. Our mission is to gain access to that knowledge and learn from it. They describe the group as a collection of communities, each focused on a different domain of knowledge. Members are referred to as masters of their domain, and they work together to explore topics ranging from linguistics to physics to metaphysics. Only the masters post, but the communities they lead range from 5 members to 50. Their focus isn't limited to any one field. You'll find references to everything from Sufi mysticism to quantum computing, from Vedic texts to alleged government black projects. FL doesn't seem to separate esoteric knowledge from classified information. To them, both are hidden in plain sight, waiting to be discovered. But their main focus, language, not really as a tool, but as a living system. On a language forum in 2010, Andrel stated that language isn't just a way of describing the world, it actually shapes our perception of it. According to them, there are feelings, experiences, and even entire ways of being that only exist because a language gives them form. Only a native speaker of Russian can fully grasp the meaning of Dusa. Only a native speaker of Hebrew can grasp the full meaning of Memra or Ruach. There are cognitive tests that consistently prove a speaker of a certain language perceives reality in a different way than a speaker of another language. Language and consciousness are inseparable. Andrel signs off by calling forgotten languages the Translation Shall Cease project. In Andrel's words, we're reaching a point where existing languages, especially natural ones like English, Russian, or Arabic, are no longer sufficient to describe what's coming. In their view, language shapes not just thought, but identity itself, and that identity can become a prison. Whether it's post-human evolution, contact with non-human intelligences, or the nature of consciousness itself, we are outgrowing our current vocabulary. To address that, FL claims to have developed a system called node spaces, a kind of experimental software that simulates language drift using mathematical models. They describe it as a genetic algorithm where a language is subjected to evolving boundary conditions. Some languages are the result of altering Welsh or Semitic languages and letting the system run with new parameters. Others, like Cassini Discus, look more like visual symbols than traditional text. "We are not interested in proto-languages," Andrel wrote. "We are interested in proto-humans, as they spoke, so we can understand post-humans, as they will speak." These new languages, according to FL, aren't just for communication. They're tools for accessing knowledge, shifting consciousness, and potentially making contact with other forms of life that may exist in extra dimensions. Communication is just a survival strategy used by all life forms. Language is just a small subset, used by humans and those life forms who have a similar neural setup. But if we want to communicate with others, say ants, we would need something else entirely. There's a recurring sense in Andrel's writing that the real message isn't just in the words, but in what they point to. That meaning may not come from decoding at all, but from a fundamental shift in how we perceive. The overarching idea is clear. Knowledge is freedom. But maybe it's not the kind of knowledge we're used to chasing. Maybe it's not totally about finding answers, but about learning how to see. And the evolution of language, they believe, is key to accessing knowledge, and maybe even kinds of connection that are currently beyond our reach. So, what knowledge are they attempting to communicate? This section is going to briefly describe some of the main topics that FL covers in their posts. This is by no means a deep dive, so if there's enough interest, future videos will cover each of these topics and more in greater detail. We mentioned node spaces earlier, and it's one of the most intriguing claims made by the group. According to Andrel, this isn't a language generator per se, it's a framework for simulating language evolution, consciousness drift, and even interspecies communication. Node spaces is often described as a genetic algorithm that applies stochastic, boundary-driven changes to natural languages, resulting in entirely new linguistic forms. It's not about creating coded languages. The goal is to model the way languages change over time and use that to forecast or simulate how post-human or non-human entities might communicate. As Andrel put it, "We designed a software called node spaces that acts as a genetic algorithm that takes as input a given language and then, by simulated annealing, subjects the language to a set of stochastic rules. The language is forced to adapt itself, thus changing its syntactic structure and its morphological internal structure." And to be honest, a lot of this goes over my head. The languages you happen to spot in our blog are final or intermediate states for a given scenario we are currently working on. The languages used in Welsh is called WEDAG 2075. We fed the system with Welsh, suppressed the Normand contribution, added some voicelic patterns, and let the system evolve, assigning specific value to the beta exponent of an icing system to see what happens. A language called Alashi 1330 is a Semitic one with bi-radical nouns and IESVO typology, with a Lyapunov exponent of pattern 3, so on. So, yeah. Each output is labeled like EDAG 1240 or LEM 2200 based on the parameters used to generate it. These labels refer to outputs at certain stable attractors within a mathematical model based on the Ising model from statistical mechanics. The software they claim is paired with another system called Vectorial to simulate these dynamics. The system we are developing is called node spaces, and it is coupled to a statistical mechanical program called Vectorial. What they do is implement the Ising model, adapted to the study of language contact and language drift. FL then uses the output of node spaces, these engineered languages, for translation experiments, ideological essays, and communication protocols. And they test these languages not by measuring fluency, but by how well they hold up under real-world use, like translating sacred texts, philosophical essays, or scientific articles utilizing complex technical jargon. The new language is then used by the community, allowing us to further fine-tune the generated languages, of which so far 37 have been designed, 17 of which are now completed. They also emphasize that these are not conlings in the traditional sense. They're meant to model language as an evolving system, deeply tied to cognition, memory, and perception. They are also meant to be private. They are not conlings, which is why we do not pursue research in that area. Because they are engineered, no previous knowledge is available to the non-designers, which allows the languages to be freely used for information sharing and human communication on a private basis. Now, some people online have pointed to a US patent, US 6633837B1, filed by Object Reservoir, which was later acquired by Halliburton, as the possible origin or proof of node spaces. This patent is for a symbolic language translator that uses Mathematica to automatically generate simulation code for fluid dynamics models. It's real, and pretty complex, but there's zero evidence that it's connected to FL or node spaces in any meaningful way. The system described in the patent uses symbolic manipulation to generate optimized code for modeling fluid flow in porous media, like oil reservoirs. The patent really has nothing to do with language evolution or symbolic drift. While both systems mention symbolic translation and complex simulation, the goals and implementation are fundamentally different. And maybe it could be applied to language evolution as well. I'm no expert, but I think this connection is probably just a case of thematic similarity and not actual overlap. So we've talked about the languages. One of the biggest draws for people first encountering forgotten languages is, of course, decrypting them to see what they're hiding. Over the years, independent researchers have uncovered ways to reliably translate some of these languages. A method originally mentioned by a user named The Crawler revealed that many of FL's languages aren't purely invented. Instead, they've been relexified, a linguistic process where the grammar and structure remain largely English, but the vocabulary is replaced with entirely new words. Dates, acronyms, punctuation, even proper nouns are often left intact, leaving behind breadcrumbs. In this example, the acronym NAOC has been left in, untranslated, giving us a clue. The breakthrough came through FL's bibliographies and those untranslated clues. By cross-referencing cited sources, especially scientific papers, with blocks of FL's untranslated sections, researchers began to identify one-to-one matches. These became known as stones. Like Rosetta Stones, they unlock parts of a specific dialect and allow translations to be built from the inside out. A sentence like, "Hey, the signal was lost in the storm," might appear in FL as, "Rin ta isad raki enor upu ta thalmi." Same structure, same meaning, same number of words and punctuation, just a different surface. These translations, according to the research community, are often built with substitution tables specific to each dialect, and likely processed using software like the now defunct MS Transliteration utility. One of the clearest breakdowns of this process comes from a researcher named Kixaru, who details it on their blog strangeminds.au, link in the description. He describes how spreadsheets, Python scripts, and comparison tools are used to build functional dictionaries for many of FL's dialects. One of the most recurring entities mentioned is a group known as the Gesellians. Gesellians? I don't know. Like almost all of the topics on the blog, Gesellians aren't introduced with a formal explanation. There's no origin story, no definitive description, just scattered mentions across hundreds of posts. Casselians are consistently associated with high-level events, UFO sightings, technological anomalies, and direct biological recoveries. According to FL, a site in Gilan, Iran, referred to as Cassel, has been at the center of these encounters for over 50 years. You may have heard of the 1976 Tehran UFO incident, a real, widely documented case where 2 Iranian fighter jets were scrambled to intercept an alleged glowing object in the sky. One jet lost instrumentation and communication as it approached. Weapon systems failed. The radar locked onto something massive, but when the pilot tried to fire, everything shut down. Suddenly, nothing was working. The weapons control panel was out, and I lost all the instruments and the radio. Jafari looked to his left and saw the primary diamond-shaped thing up there, and another bright object came out of it and headed directly to the ground. Expecting an explosion that did not happen, he claimed, "It seemed to slow down and land gently on the ground, radiating a high, bright light." That incident is real. It was reported to the U.S. Joint Chiefs of Staff on the same day. In a post titled 64 Years of Excavations in Gazelle, FL claims that what happened in 1976 was part of a broader recovery effort related to Casselian technology and biology. That Gazelle is somehow a hotspot for out-of-Earth visitors is out of dispute. The 1976 Tehran UFO incident was probably the tip of the iceberg. They allege that 2 earlier high-level events in 1975 and 1976, which were never publicly disclosed, prompted the formation of an international recovery program, and a later incident. The 2003 high-level event involved the recovery of the downed craft from the depths of the Caspian Sea, an opportunity to gather information on the biology of those beings. FL reports the recovery of 5 nearly intact bodies and non-terrestrial artifacts, including some linked to the enigmatic Cassini discus system. The implication is that the Casselians, who are never clearly defined, aren't just passing through. They may have lost something here, and they may be trying to get it back. Some of the bodies found in the Gazelle site deserve special mention for the pattern of disposal, as well as for the association with strange technological objects, in particular with the so-called Cassini discus. The 1976 incident itself, according to FL, was part of a larger wave of Gazelian activity, including events in Spain, Iran, and elsewhere that year. They referred to it as the Gazelian Forward Wave. Of all the UFO flaps, this was the most extraordinary, as Gazelian visitors ventured to even land on at least 3 occasions, and were reported to fly over 35 sensitive military facilities. They describe a sophisticated intelligence-gathering operation, sightings over nuclear and military sites, and intercepted signals that couldn't be identified or denied. It remains unexplained how multiple 121.12 MHz signals were received, as if the ground were covered with hundreds of emergency beacons. They also report radiation-like injuries reported by recovery personnel. 2 of the recovery team members felt a burning in the chest, having a total loss of epidermis. 3 died on the morning of the 5th. The official line was denial. According to FL, there were even international meetings between Soviet and American officials to withhold what happened in Gazelle from the Iranian government. Decision on not to share any information about the Gazelle incident with the Iranians. Reply from the Soviets that they will not share with us any information related to the Gazelle high-level events if Belenko's affair is not properly handled. Even more unsettling is the idea that these beings weren't necessarily trying to communicate with us at all. In another post, FL describes the CAFB incident in New Mexico, where signal exchanges were reportedly observed between non-human lifeforms, with us on the outside, simply watching. We were contemplating the signs of unintentional communication between non-human lifeforms absolutely not interested in communicating with us. FL calls this a shift from semiotics, the study of meaning, to semiosis, the process by which meaning itself emerges. To them, these aren't just aliens and ships. They are part of our world, part of our technosphere, and now, our biosemiosphere. They've left markers, signals, beacons, from Iran to Kamchatka, Chiapas to Alaska. And if FL is to be believed, or the sources they're quoting, we're not looking for them anymore and haven't been for a long time. We've been living alongside them. If you've ever seen videos of glowing orbs zigzagging across the sky, splitting apart, fusing, or vanishing, FL might argue you were not witnessing a UFO. You were watching a mill orb. According to FL sources, mill orbs, short for military orbs, are spherical plasmoids designed for electronic warfare, population influence, and even pilot training. They're not alien, but they're not exactly human either. They're something new. In the post, From Radar Angels to Optical Demons, FL describes them as glowing greenish spheres made of phosphorescent materials, designed to mimic the full electromagnetic and visual signature of an aircraft. For a casual observer, the mill orb appears just like that, a greenish glowing sphere. But when switched into the kinetic mode, it looks like a green-bluish rod falling from the sky toward the selected target at high speed. They're part decoy, part weapon, and part psychological warfare. In another article, FL claims that PSVs, or paradigm shifter vehicles, were designed to transcend the pilot-aircraft relationship entirely. The pilot then becomes a wearable embedded into a smart object fully controlled by biosignals. From the outside, what you observe is just a black triangle, which behaves as a living form. These vehicles use motion sensors, retinal scanning, and neuroresponse data to form a kind of hybrid consciousness between pilot and machine. According to FL, the pilot is no longer human in the traditional sense. They're tweaked, neurologically adapted for full cybernetic integration. Some PSVs, like the Presence vehicle, are reportedly invisible to radar during testing and only become visible once the mission calls for it. QAZ and FTW radars were blind to the test vehicle for at least 23 minutes. Test flight shows the vehicle could have easily disrupted all major radar facilities. But it's not just about stealth or speed. Some PSVs, FL claims, are designed to specifically induce mystical experiences in those who see them, whether that's awe, confusion, or a complete spiritual shift. After being exposed to the PSV vehicles, individuals suffer a change in attitude towards death. Consciousness is understood as separate from bodily incarnations. One test flight, they say, was responsible for the infamous Phoenix Lights event. This isn't only advanced aerospace tech, it's narrative control. And according to FL, these crafts serve a double duty. They're used to test enemy airspace defenses, and also to train our own pilots without them even knowing it. Mill orbs are deployed during live exercises, and pilots are never told that they were being tested. See, taking a UFO for an incoming missile is okay with us. Taking an incoming missile for a UFO is not. So if a pilot sees a mill orb, reacts, and reports it as a UFO, that's considered a successful test. Telling them the UFOs they encounter are mill orbs used to test their combat abilities will destroy the spirit of the advanced training program. On the other hand, not telling them the truth bolsters their belief in the existence of UFOs. The very moment they know that we have the capability to recreate UFO sightings, that will become vox populi, and hence the entire training program will be ruined. Some mill orbs are even said to be capable of penetrating walls, regenerating on the other side, and absorbing radar energy to stay alive. The more you track the object with radar, the longer its lifetime. In the absence of an RF source, the PSV provides the mill orb with the required RF. So no, it is not a PSV chasing a mill orb that you see. It is a PSV feeding a mill orb. And then there's the big one, Tic Tacs. While most people know them from the USS Nimitz encounter, FL makes a bold claim. Tic Tac UFOs? No, sorry. They are kinetic weapons at hypersonic speeds. After impact, the smallest piece you'd find is the size of a Tic Tac mint. They're launched from vehicles like Sienna and Tangent, and FL says even Carrier Strike Group 11 didn't detect them because they weren't looking under the sea, they were looking up. Throughout the English passages in FL, a group called SV-17Q shows up again and again, sometimes mentioned directly, and sometimes just hinted at. When they appear, the tone changes. These aren't researchers or scientists explaining their work. They sound like strategists, cold, calculated, and in control. It feels less like academic writing and more like internal communications from people pulling strings behind the scenes, economically, politically, and globally. In one article, they described their philosophy bluntly. If UAP are a threat to any states, then they are probably a threat to all. Collective security is the most logical defense. Thus, SV-17Q backed a strategy of attacks to key infrastructures all over the world to force a situation in which the entire world would accept collective security. It reads like the justification of a covert elite, one that doesn't only react to world events but manipulates them, and not for governments but for markets. Disclosure does not depend on governments, it depends on us, the market. UAP represent a golden opportunity to increase our profits if we manage the situation wisely. In one document, SV-17Q is directly linked to covert military actions. The article Zafar-1 Satellite Beautiful Failure describes a 2020 operation where SV-17Q conducted cyber and physical disruptions during tensions between the US and Iran. It involved communication blackouts, the interception of satellite parts, and the deployment of mill-orbs. In the article Super Games, FL presents COVID-19 not as a health crisis but as a coalitional strategic game. Dates, economic metrics, and even lab incidents are presented in eerie sequence, like a multiplayer simulation being run by competing factions. One of those players, SV-17Q. Another group, SV-06N, is also mentioned, allegedly running a bioweapon test in a US retirement community. Then we hit real-world overlap. As mentioned at the beginning of this video, journalist Michael Schellenberger submitted a whistleblower report to Congress that, among other claims, mentions forgotten languages. Buried in the dense testimony is this: the National Underwater Reconnaissance Office, or NURO, collects massive data on underwater UAP and seeks, but is unable, to coordinate with a group known as SV-17Q. For a great video on NURO, check out UAP GURB's video, link in the description. We now know that this document was provided by former Pentagon and State Department whistleblower Matthew Brown. In his interview with Jeremy Corbell and George Knapp, he hinted at the existence of a global group operating behind the scenes, an elite network responsible for a system of secrecy that has infiltrated and compromised key parts of society for the benefit of a select few. According to him, the military, intelligence agencies, academic institutions, and scientific fields have all been entangled in this hidden agenda. He portrays the United States as having willingly allowed itself to be influenced by a force that treats countries and people as mere instruments to achieve its objectives. Could he be referring to SV-17Q? In the same FL article that the Schellenberger document references, SV-17Q is again connected to a database called Dolan, which allegedly tracks 17,500 signatures, including non-terrestrial ones. The article claims SV-17Q confiscates the data under a no right to know dictum. We don't know who SV-17Q actually is, but on Discord, a user who met Lou Elizondo, former head of the Pentagon's ATIP program, claims Lou told them that SV-17Q and SV-06N are real, and that they were real bodies. Take that how you will. Elizondo has stirred controversy recently after showing a debunked photo of a supposed UFO at a congressional meeting, one quickly revealed to be an optical illusion created by Fields. So, maybe treat his name with caution. But the mention of SV-17Q is certainly now bleeding from obscure FL documents into the larger UAP conversation. These are just a few of the names and themes that show up through the Forgotten Languages archive. There are dozens more. Cryptic ones like Liav, XVIS, Dolan, which we mentioned earlier, Noria, the Queltron machine, Cassini Discus, which we discussed briefly, and Denebian probes, among others. Whole systems of thought and symbolic language scattered like breadcrumbs across their almost 10,000 posts. I've literally only scratched the surface here. Each of these topics really deserves its own deep dive, and again, if there's enough interest, that's what future videos will explore. For now, if you're feeling overwhelmed, that's okay. It's to be expected. This isn't really a rabbit hole meant to be mastered or solved. It's just one you kind of learn to live with. Mystery is part of the fun, for me anyway. so we still haven't really answered the question, what is Forgotten Languages? It's a question with a lot of theories and basically no answers, but to understand what this project might be, we need to look at a few of the most common explanations and what evidence supports or challenges each one. At first glance, Forgotten Languages fits the mold of an alternate reality game, or ARG. There are strange languages, encrypted posts, and cryptic connections to real-world events. Some of the English passages even read like narrative monologues, while the rest of the site is buried under ciphers and invented grammars. For someone stumbling onto the blog, it might feel like a puzzle waiting to be solved. But if this is a game, it's one without rules, rewards, or clear players. There are no leaderboards, no community updates, no winking clues to reassure the audience that it's all pretend. Most ARGs are designed to be solved, but FL resists solving. It's recursive, massive, and largely uninterested in engaging directly with the outside world. There's also longevity to consider. The blog has been updated almost daily for over 15 years, with thousands of articles. That's a level of commitment that goes far beyond what most ARGs aim for. And there's no monetization, no apparent audience engagement, just an unrelenting stream of content. Remember the bookstore I mentioned? You used to be able to buy them, and some of them were quite expensive. But the buy links are gone now. They cut off a clear way of making money. It could be a long-form LARP, sure. But if it is, it's one of the most sustained, detailed, and inaccessible ones ever made. Some of the terminology in FL points directly to defense contexts. Defense reports, ELINT, ISR, node spaces, MASINT, and more. The blog references real locations, real satellites, and real military programs. It even aligns with dates of public events, like the previously mentioned Tehran UFO incident, the Phoenix Lights, and specific satellite re-entries. One theory suggests FL is a kind of narrative training ground, a soft interface for internal communication, scenario modeling, or testing psychological responses to disclosure themes. The blog's languages could function as obfuscation, methods of hiding meaning in plain sight while still offering accessibility to trained eyes. Or they could be modeling a technology they'd like to sell to defense contractors, or the government. But there are issues with this theory. For one, the blog is public. If it were truly a covert government project, why host it on an open access platform, with no login or clearance barriers? Government ops don't tend to wrap intelligence in postmodern poetry and Vedic symbolism. Still, some researchers think that it could be a leaked archive, a back channel, or a legacy project from a now defunct unit. There are hints, but no confirmation. This is my personal favorite. Forgotten Languages shares conceptual DNA with the Cybernetic Culture Research Unit, or CCRU, a 1990s collective that merged philosophy, cybernetics, occult ideas, and speculative fiction into recursive theoretical experiments. CCRU developed the idea of hyperstition, fictions that make themselves real by spreading, repeating, and embedding in culture. FL seems to operate in a similar way. Its articles don't explain, they propagate. It layers myth, math, and metaphor in a way that feels designed to reshape how the reader perceives language, time, and self. In one research paper online, a dedication even thanks members of the CCRU and Andrew Regina in the same space, suggesting at least a shared influence or lineage. If this is a hyperstitional engine, it may not be trying to describe reality at all. It may be trying to create a new one, through language, repetition, and recursion. But unlike the CCRU, FL doesn't seem interested in theory circles, cultural dialogue, or academic discourse. It publishes into a void, refusing commentary or context. So, while the structural similarities are strong, the surrounding behavior is a bit harder to place. One of the more unsettling theories is that FL is the mouthpiece of a private, non-governmental group operating across defense, finance, and psychological influence domains. This theory hinges on the figure of SV-17Q, what we discussed earlier, and a name that appears frequently in English passages with a tone of control and operational authority. Another describes covert cyber operations, directed satellite interceptions, and the deployment of mill orbs during real-world geopolitical events. If true, this would suggest FL is a place where real world strategies are processed through language for internal use, plausible deniability, or psychological insulation. But again, there's no confirmation. The surface weirdness could be camouflage, or it could be exactly what it looks like, speculative fiction dressed in seriousness. Even the Discord claim that Lou Elizondo said SV-17Q was real, while compelling, is anecdotal and tied to a figure who's recently lost credibility. Sometimes the simplest explanation deserves a hearing. FL could be the work of a passionate, deeply interdisciplinary group, linguists, scientists, artists, maybe a few ex-military types, creating an experimental fusion of fiction, research, and cryptography. Not for fame, not for money, but just for curiosity and art. The use of invented languages, obscure references, and layered meanings might reflect a collective that simply enjoys pushing boundaries. What happens when you treat language like code, and code like poetry? What truths hide in metaphor? What futures can you model if you treat myth and math as equal tools? There's a strong case for this. The tone often feels exploratory. There's no attempt to build a brand or sell a worldview. It's just content, voluminous, strange, and consistently produced. The biggest challenge to this theory is scale. Nearly 10,000 posts, dozens of languages, years of continuous output. It would require an unusual amount of dedication and some serious technical expertise to sustain something like this for so long. But if FL is a passion project, it's one of the most intricate and expansive ever attempted online. Forgotten Languages, surprisingly, is not just about language. It's about what language hides, and how meaning can be buried beneath symbols, systems, and silence. Whether it's ancient texts encoded through forgotten tongues or classified programs obscured by government secrecy, the thread is the same. Knowledge hidden behind a veil. Sometimes to protect, sometimes to obscure, and sometimes simply because we've forgotten how to see it. FL seems determined to pull that thread, and whether they're revealing truth, encrypting it, or just exploring the limits of language itself, there's no denying that something unusual is happening here. I don't know exactly what Forgotten Languages is, but something about it keeps drawing me back. Maybe it's not meant to be solved. Maybe it's something to sit with, like a symbol or a dream. Something that shapes you more than you shape it. And I'm not here to decode it, just to share what I've found, and open space for others who are curious too. Of course, this video barely scratches the surface. There's a lot I didn't include. Whole systems, deep lore, obscure terms, and countless theories. Some of you who have been following FL for years might wish I'd gone deeper or mentioned other topics, and I get it. But this was meant to give a wide-angle view, a kind of orientation for anyone encountering Forgotten Languages for the first time. That way, if we do dive into the specifics later, the bigger picture is already there. And there really is so much more to explore, not just in FL itself, but in the communities that have risen and fallen trying to understand it. From the legendary Forgotten Languages Study Group, FLSG, to the Discord server I'm part of now, filled with people still chasing the signal. There are mysterious figures, strange events, fully translated articles, and tons of unanswered questions, not just in the material, but in the people who've tried to make sense of it. And then there's my own personal interactions with members of FL. If there is enough interest in future videos, I'll be diving deeper into the themes we touched on and more. Not because I have any answers, but because these questions feel alive to me. And if you have a particular question you want me to explore, or something you feel I brushed over too quickly in this video, please leave a comment. I would love the feedback. If something here struck a chord or stirred a question, stick around. I'm going to keep following the thread wherever it leads, and you're more than welcome to come along. Thanks for watching.